Welcome to We Chat Divorce. Catherine and I welcome Wendy Sloane, podcast host and former TV producer. Our episode today is all about shedding light on financial darkness when divorcing. In this episode, we're going to discuss ways to be more clear financially when going through a divorce. But first, let's meet Wendy. Wendy is a former TV producer and the host and executive producer of the What's Up with Wendy Celebrity show and podcast. Now she's bringing her own story and experience to Divorce Doesn't Suck and focusing on the happily ever after divorce. It's a podcast that highlights the possibilities and opportunities, the chance to live a fulfilled and happy life. And I'm sure Wendy's going to share more with us about who she is and all the amazing things she's doing. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. It actually gave me chills listening to that. Thank you.
Mhm. You're
Aw.
very welcome. You're
So fun to
welcome.
have you on. We always enjoy talking to you.
Same, same. You ladies are great.
Aw, thank
Yeah.
you.
So to get started, Wendy, share your story with us. How did all this start and lead you to where you are today?
Oh, I won't go that far back into my life, but I'll just say that I met my ex-husband in the summer of 97, got engaged in 98, got married in 99. I was 33. I had my first baby at 34, my second baby at 35. And I thought that's the way life was supposed to be, right? I had my huge career. I was a TV producer for Phil Donahue and Geraldo Rivera. I'll share my little picture here. So that's Geraldo, me, and Kato Kalin.
Love
I,
it.
I love that.
This was at Geraldo's house in New Jersey during the trial. So yeah, lots of really good memories there and good moments and a lot of great pictures. But that's one of my favorites. Anyway, and I also had a radio show with Danny Bonaducci on Big 105.
Ah,
And after I was finished with my career at Geraldo, and Geraldo was going off the air. So that was a lot of fun. That's where I kind of got my radio background and realized, wow, it's way easier than being a television producer as well. Um, and then, felt that I had kind of accomplished everything that I dreamed of as a little girl in my career. I covered really big stories. I had some amazing moments in television, and I made the news in Colorado for covering John Benet Ramsey. I had flown my parents. My dad was alive then, to one of the shows and surprised them, so they got to see me do the warm up for Phil Donahue, and just I felt that I kind of did everything I could possibly do, and all I really wanted now was to be a mom. And I wanted to be a mom all along, but I wanted my career, so I felt like I did it in the right time frame. And so found myself meeting this guy, and I thought, like, this is going to be happily ever after, and I never envisioned divorce. My parents were married for over 60 years. So, and isn't this the way life is supposed to be? This is the fairy tale that you dream of. You get married, you have kids, you have a house, white picket fence. I didn't have a white picket fence, but all that stuff. And everything was fine. And then we were in New York City. We Both kids were born in New York, and after 9/11 we moved to Connecticut, and I just felt I wasn't in love. That's the truth. There was no scandal. There was no anything else. I just wasn't in love. And it spiraled into one heck of a financial trial. It wasn't about custody. It wasn't about the kids, but it became a financial, pardon my language, hell for me. And it became a business deal for him. And the kids were little. So, of course, you're a mom and I was living in a very large house, and there was no more housekeeper. There was no more help around the house. It was me and the kids. And you're thrown into this crazy world of divorce. And, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anyone at the time that was going through divorce, except I share the story all the time. There was this one girl in my town, and I sent her a message. I said, "You don't know me, but I think we have something in common." And she was my first friend, and the only friend, because I didn't tell anyone. I kept it very hush hush because I didn't want the kids to know, obviously, and they didn't know anything. And mommy and daddy were going into separate houses or anything was happening. I mean, in that respect, for like almost 2 years.
mm,
So, life just went on, and behind the scenes, everything was happening. And I didn't have a job anymore. My job was being a stay at home mom and taking care of the kids. So financially, I didn't have any money anymore. And I used to, and I don't think I've shared this before publicly, I used to have to submit bills to him,
Mm.
submit expenses to him. I remember I submitted them on envelopes. Like, this is, so and so's gym class, this is so and so's sport class, this is so and so's dance class, and the expenses. And I was getting paid that way. Not a good feeling. And I think that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit as well. All the control with money, because that's not the way it should be. I should have my own. It just, I think that was part of falling out of love as well.
So you were doing that during your marriage?
I was doing that during my marriage.
I used
And
to I used to have to make appointments on Saturday to talk about some kid stuff.
yeah, that, he was a workaholic, but that was fine because I knew that going into it. And I used to work around the clock, million, news, television, you're on calls, news stories breaking, you're out of there. So I understood that and I was fine with that. I think a lot of the financial, probably now that I think about it, might have played a big part in me kind of wanting to get out and be my own person, because I kind of felt it that in that respect, I wasn't my own person.
Well, you were
And
being financially controlled, and that's abusive. So, I just want to ask you, if you don't mind, and thank you for sharing that with us. So, you handed in these envelopes to him with details on what the expenses were for. And so, what did you use, a credit card that you had to be reimbursed for, or are you asking him for the money to pay those expenses? Like, will you be?
it, yeah, well, I was using my own credit card that I had since I moved to New York City right after graduating from college. It was all on my credit card.
Hmm.
I never had a credit card, a marital credit card, if you want to call it that.
So if you're listening, that is a red flag, red flag. If you're married, and we talk about financial abuse a lot because it's one of the abuses that isn't really often talked about. If you're being controlled like that, that is, Wendy's really sharing a delicate story, and many people are living like this because we have them come through our process and we hear it. So, know these red flags, and you know what? Wanting to be financially independent is enough reason to get a divorce.
Right. And I just want to say, he never said no. He never
Mhm.
was like not going to pay. He never said no, but it was the way it made me feel.
Right. And Wendy, I'm glad that you're saying that because many, many of our clients that come through have that very same story, and somehow they feel ashamed about it, and they shouldn't be. But I think they don't understand the difference between someone being a financial manager in their home and someone controlling, um, in the way of financial abuse, right? Even if someone's a financial manager, you still should have financial autonomy in your relationship, where you feel free to have your own ability to pay for things without that level of reporting, because I'm sure he wasn't reporting to you what he spent, right? So, there was no balance there. And I think that's probably why you felt so diminished, financially.
And there was also like, I was always, sign this, sign this, sign this. I never even knew what I was signing away half the time. I know now a lot of the things I signed away, but I didn't know then.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, but I want to just reiterate, bring us backwards a little bit. You said, he never said no. That is such a defense, that you're a creature of your own habit by saying, he never said no. So you're almost giving him the hall pass for. Would he have said no if you just went to him without an envelope and you said, I need $3,000 to pay my credit card because it was all the kids' expenses? Now that's where the no comes in, because his control could have been gone. He didn't say no because you diligently wrote everything down for him the way he wanted it. So again, another red flag. If you're saying, well, he never said no, go back to what Karen's saying here. What is he spending money on? And do you have an opportunity to even say no to him to spend the money there? And again, it doesn't have to lead to divorce. We have a lot of people that come through and become prepared, and then there's a symmetry of information and a reset to your financial life, and they get post-nups, or they just work on the emotional part because financially they become aware. But it is interesting. That's the
Mhm.
darkness part. We excuse
Yeah.
the behavior, because certain needs are being met?
Oh, it just became I was so mad. I am so madly in love with my kids. I think that I just kept doing it, doing it, doing it. And it wasn't like I was so busy in my life with them because I was so involved with them that then it gets to the point where I was like, this is not okay. I'm not going to submit bills to you anymore. No, no. And I started saying, I need to know where the money is. I need to know what's going on. I want my own credit. When I started getting like that, things started, and it was basically like, you're going to pay. We're going to, and it became, by the way, and I found out later during all this that it became a business deal for him. He started setting up attorney meetings, knocking off all the attorneys so I couldn't go to them. And here I am, just get me an attorney. That's where I say, take a deep breath, find out what the rules and what the laws are in your state so you are aware and don't be rushed to go through anything. I felt very pressured to get this divorce done. I felt, and because also there were so many people in our lives between mediators and attorneys and therapists and this and that and other thing that it was drowning me. And I really wanted to get out fast. And I wished I would have backed up and been like, no, I can't do it today. Or no, I'm taking my time and realized that I could have taken my time and I could have been a little smarter, done a lot more research and had my ducks in a row better. I would have come out a lot better financially, I think.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I was only thinking about the kids and the kids were with me and the kids were healthy and fine. And that's what mattered most.
it's definitely an uncomfortable process. And when you finally get to enough courage to actually initiate a divorce or go through a divorce, and it's still scary. And so nobody likes to sit in that world for too long. So, you can't be so hard on yourself because you knew the best you did the best you could at the time you were doing it. And that's what's so great about hopping on these podcasts and sharing this information for anyone sitting at home feeling like they're in the dark financially, or probably really connecting to what, we're talking about right now, because you see it, you want to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you just love your kids more than you hate your ex-spouse. And
That's
so
it.
you
Said it.
just right? So you just want to get through it. But what you're not thinking about, if you're listening, is all of the professionals go home at the end of the day. And the one that settles, that attorney has the least amount of work to do. So that's really good for them. And they still get paid, right? So,
Right.
but everybody goes home and everyone's lives moves on.
Yeah.
And then here you sit and you still love your kids as much because nothing's going to change, but you didn't protect
Right.
yourself. And
Yeah.
so that's why you have resources now to protect yourself financially. It goes a long way
Oh
in
yeah.
the future.
And I always said, back then I always said, oh God, I want to make a difference in the divorce world. I want to help people. But it was so all over me that I wasn't able to do that yet.
Yeah.
So
I like that you said you used the word drowning. And I think that emotion or that feeling is very common because history has set the standard that if you're approaching or thinking about the divorce, the very first thing you do is hire an attorney, right?
mhm,
That just seems to be the first step. However, people don't realize that the moment that happens is the moment that you're filing papers, which are pretty much irreversible. You're filling out financial affidavits, and most people, or people who are not the financial manager, have no idea what to put down. And that starts the drowning process.
oh, and those
So,
financial affidavits, my least favorite thing in the whole planet. I mean, it's just like, and also I didn't know where half the paperwork was. I didn't know what all the finances were. Like, I knew I knew what the kids' expenses were because I bought everything for them. But as far as the rest of the stuff, I didn't know what that was. I mean, I knew what our mortgage was,
right.
and
But
now I wish I wasn't on that mortgage, right? I mean, geez. But you know what? The smartest thing that happened to me during that time, well, there was several smart things that happened, but my girlfriend said, hooked me up with a really great financial person who is my financial person to this day. And they kept me very safe. And fast forward, I own a little beach house. It's free and clear. And I did it. And I'm so proud of where I am today. And that was the reason I was able to start, my podcast Divorce Doesn't Suck last year. I was able to launch that and feel that now I've come full circle, and the light is so bright and so happy and so peaceful that I just want everyone else to feel that and get to that place.
Yeah, you can, divorce does not define who we are. It's a part of our story. And it doesn't have to be a death, like people. I have this debate with my daughter several times. To her it was like a death. To me, it wasn't. So it's interesting, and that's a whole nother podcast. But it's nice to hear that peace. We all want peace and kindness in our lives. And if you're listening, I know you want to be where the three of us are right now, but mine was 12 years ago. Karen's was longer than that. I don't know how long years was
Oh
Karen.
my gosh, almost 30
30.
years
Yeah,
ago.
30
Yeah.
years ago. So Wendy, you said this
I was a long time ago. I got divorced in 2008.
right.
Mm,
So this is where we sit today. So there's a lot of work to do, but it does matter how you start, and it's never too late to change your relationship with money. And that's why we feel like being financially prepared and having that financial knowledge lets you take those little baby steps towards your new independent
mhm.
life, to having your own little beach place, sitting there with peace in your life. That's
Right.
like the American dream, if you ask me, right?
And you know what? It was also a struggle because I lived in an affluent town. Everybody had everything. And I didn't want my kid's life to change. So, you know, the big house went and I got, a perfect house. Was it a perfect house? Okay, not really. But it was the perfect house for us. And where there's love, that's where home is, right? And it was in a neighbor, it was in the, it was, if I had to go back again, I might have looked a little bit more, but this house became available. There was no realtor. I could take it. It was a friend's house. I moved in and it worked, and it was surrounded and filled with love, and it was the happiest place to raise my kids. And um, so that was a good thing, and I tried to keep their life as hard as it was, as normal as it was before. We didn't have
Yeah.
everything that everybody had, but the kids didn't need for anything. And how I did that, I look back and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you got what I'm saying, you got what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, right?
Yeah. That's so
It
interesting you say that, Wendy. And I remember you said a little while back, earlier in our conversation, that you wished you hadn't been in such a hurry. You wish you didn't feel like it was an emergency. So I just want to pose the question to you. What if you knew that you didn't, that you could take the time to understand what you had, whether your name was on that mortgage or not, whether your name was on the deed or not, and what that meant to you, good or bad, indifferent, right? What if you were able to take the time to understand all of that and then move forward to fill out that financial affidavit and to get the understanding of how those things worked? I think that you would say now that that would have made a difference in your
Yeah.
trajectory moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't have had to, sometimes I worried. I wouldn't have had to worry.
Mhm.
I didn't want to go back to I couldn't go back to being a television producer because I was raising my kids and they were involved in sports and I was very involved in their sports, and being a television producer could take you away. That's round the clock. So that life was over for me. So what do you do now? Yes, you have child support. And you had some alimony, but that's not enough to sustain you. And all that I could have done better if I had had the resources and I had known a lot of other things. So I made what work, but I was determined not to go back to work. So fast forward a couple years later, I launched a radio show, and that helped a little bit. In Greenwich, it was nationally syndicated for a time, but it was local, and I did much better in the local world. So it was my celebrity show, and that helped a little bit, here and there. But I only went to the studio one day a week. And it was when the kids were at school. They were, they were old, a little bit older. So that helped. But I was determined to stay at home and be their mother. And I didn't want to go back to work. And I know a lot of people out there have to go back to work, and their lives change, their kids' lives change. And that's tough. I
Yeah.
was fortunate in that I made it work with what I had, that I didn't have to do that.
And sometimes people that have to go back to work, sometimes it's just mentally you have to go to work. You know,
Yeah.
what else am I doing with the rest of my life is a question, right? Like I never thought
Mhm.
I'd become an entrepreneur at age 44. You know,
Mhm.
being a financial planner and a stay-at-home mom, I never thought I was going to open my own company. You know, but
Right.
my path led me to that,
Mhm.
which I'm so thankful for because now we help, so
Right.
many people out there. But I think when you have the clarity, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I always say it's the clarity. So if you need to go get a job, you need to go get a job to maintain the lifestyle that you want. If you want to adjust your lifestyle, go ahead and adjust your lifestyle so you can stay at home,
Mhm.
so that you have options available to you if you understand what's at risk here for keeping or leaving on the table, what is really rightfully yours. And when you take that, whether you give it all up or not, adjust your life accordingly.
I had to go when I went and launched my radio show. I needed that for myself, for my head, and for myself, because I loved being the PTC, involved in that, and being the room mom, being the team mom for all the sports. But then there came a point where I was like, I need something for Wendy now. And I need something to bring me back to not being Jake and Summer, my kid's mom. I need something to be, back to just Wendy again. And so that's what the radio show did for me. And it kept me, involved in my career and in that world. And that fulfilled me a lot. And that brought me a lot of joy too. And it brought me back to myself. And it kind of went full circle when I started doing that. And that
Mhm.
was a couple years, that was like 8, 9, 2 years, couple years later that I did that.
Financial independence is the core to confidence,
Hmm.
and then fueling it with what you love to do is what we all should be doing every day in our lives.
And I also want to say, like, I went through a lot with my ex-husband, mostly financial for the majority of the part. And now I look back and I say this, like, I know people are in it, and it's horrible to be in it, and it's tough to be in it, and it's darkness, and it's sleepless nights, and it's painful, and it's, you think you're swimming and you just can't get to shore. But I forgive now, and I have peace with him. And we talk once in a blue moon now. And you have to, I learned that I can't hold on to that. So I just want it to be out there that you just can't hold on, to all that bad stuff. Like, let it go, because it frees so much up in your heart and your life.
Yeah. Well, that was
It took
15
me a
years
long time to be able to say that. It took me a
ago.
long time to say
Yeah.
that, because
Yeah.
but then what the anger does to you, it makes you ugly, and it does things to your insides.
Yeah.
And from what I hear of your story, Wendy, it didn't happen overnight, just like you said, but it happened by you starting to say, I'm not turning in my bills anymore. It started then, right? That's the
Uh,
moment it started, I'm
Pretty
guessing.
much. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that was there was a couple other things, but yeah, that was, there was, yeah, I fell out of love. So that comes with
Yeah.
its own little,
Yeah.
story, right?
And you don't
But
have to fall out of love to change the way you integrate with your family finances.
mhm.
So I
And
think
I was
everybody needs to know that too.
yes, and I was never like, I never like dawned like, I was a single mom. I was raising my kids. It never, I think I also had a really good support system in friends. So I think that helped a lot too. And I think that's really important for people. I mean, they're not going to solve your finances, and they're not going to do this or
Mhm.
whatever. But I made a whole, like, I kept all of our traditions with them, and they kept me grounded and safe and loved, and my kids loved. And that helped too.
Yeah. I mean, the advert, yeah. I mean, I lost some friends during mine, but with that same regard, I gained some really good friends who are really friends, even 12 years later now.
And you don't need an army of them, you just need a few good ones that you can. And if they're not going through it, they don't really understand it. They will never understand unless you walk through our shoes, right?
Mhm.
But
Yep.
it helps to have them.
All right. So let's leave our listeners with one or two tips as we conclude our discussion today. So, Wendy, do you want to start with that?
Take deep breaths, a lot of them. Slow down. Slow down, get your facts, find out what the laws are in your state because they're different in every state, and know that no matter what, no matter who's pushing you, no matter what, you can slow the process down so you can take clarity and time to figure out what's best for you and get the best lawyer in the planet. Not, I mean, I'm not saying the one that's the sharkest lawyer. Get a really good lawyer. I mean, I was foreign before I finally found my lawyer. And I went through not so good, not ones that didn't really have my back. They just wanted the money, they just wanted to win, they just wanted whatever. So I found someone who actually really cared about what was going to happen and who still cares about me to this day. And so that's really important. A really good lawyer and a really good financial person is really important.
Yeah.
And just know that you will come out the other side.
Yeah. And in taking some of those steps that Wendy just mentioned means that you will avoid premature negotiations because you can't find a good lawyer if you don't know the complexities of your estate. And you went through several to get to one, and that's because of that. So once you present your estate in what we do it in the financial portrait form, then you know the attorney is going to rise to the occasion who cares about you because they can handle your estate, the complexities of your estate. But most importantly for me, it is do not do any premature negotiations. Don't say you want the house and he can have the retirement accounts, or you want this and he can have that, or vice versa, without knowing all the options available to you and where you need to compromise. Um,
I
so,
was I was speaking of that, I was just guiding a friend through, he's in mediation, and he was like, "Well, I go, don't go in there and be angry. Don't go in there and just go in there and listen. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to agree to anything. Listen to what they have to say. Walk out of the room. Don't let her see you sweat. Don't let her see you get upset. Just listen, take your time, take the information. You don't have to say anything right then and there."
it's true.
So
And
true.
you want to, because the fight is there. Oh, and I have one more good piece of advice. Don't email and text your attorney every 5 seconds like you want to. I mean, I know you want to, because that ended up costing me a lot of money too.
Mhm,
Do
mhm.
not do that. Send it to a friend, send it in a draft, keep your notes, make a note maybe once a week, then you make your whole list at one time. And don't let them gaslight you, because they'll try to gaslight you. That's a huge word in divorce. And don't let that happen to you either, because that happened to me so much, because you want to defend yourself and but that's what they want.
Right,
They want to get under your skin.
right.
That's so true. And then your attorney is forced to deal with all of those various emails. It's not like they can ignore them. So,
Right.
yeah. So, my tip is just take one step at a time and feel very confident in those steps before you move forward. Because if you do the work of preparation, even though it may seem tedious and daunting, that's
Hmm.
really important work so that you know what kind of attorney to hire. You know what level of experience you need them to represent you from. And if you can figure out a way to take one step at a time and stay in that confidence and stay in that knowledge, you'll do yourself so many wonderful favors that you'll never regret. So, this concludes this episode on shedding light on financial darkness when divorcing. Wendy, how can our listeners find you and learn more about you?
Oh, follow me on Divorce Doesn't Suck on Instagram. Um, and I'm on every single platform that there's out there: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. So follow, share, subscribe, and let's keep this conversation going so we can help more people.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for a fantastic
Thank,
conversation.
thank you guys for what you do too, making a big difference.
Thank you.